I'll give you a little bit of music this morning. As a gift to his human children, the Great Spirit created butterflies. He took the black from the maiden's hair. He took the yellow from the warm summer sun and the blues from the lake and from the skies. Once he gathered the most beautiful of colors, he created the butterfly. And if anyone desires a wish to come true, they must first capture the butterfly and whisper the wish to the butterfly. Since a butterfly can make no sound, he cannot reveal your secret to anyone but the Great Spirit. And being so colorful, of course, the Great Spirit sees it first and brings the prayers directly to him. And they're quickly answered. In gratitude for giving the butterfly its freedom, the Great Spirit will answer your wish always. And so according to the legend, by making a wish and giving the butterfly its freedom, the wish will be taken on the wings of love to the heavens and be granted in due time. Good morning. Oh, Happy New Year. Oh, it's my favorite time of the year, just before the winds kick in. But yet all the flowers are out. And when we see the first butterfly, I think is my true sign that it's definitely springtime. And then I start to see the little caterpillars that are eating my petunias and have second thoughts about that. This month, the theme at CSL here is rising above old beliefs. So today I'll be talking about giving flight to your present life, how we can do that, how change happens, and I'll be using the example of the butterfly, of course, and the great metamorphosis the butterfly needs to go through. But I want to start with just a question. Feel free to throw out the answer. Why change?
Everything always changes. To progress forward.
Absolutely. Boy, well, never mind, I'm done. That's absolutely right, and I love what Edie said at first, because change is always happening. The only constant actually is change. I mean, if you really think about it, who can remember when a mobile phone meant those giant clunky things that were in your car connected to those were the original mobile phones. And who can remember when to shop you had to go to a store, you know? And if they didn't have it, guess what? You didn't need it. You didn't buy something. That was probably a much better time. Also, change makes you flexible, doesn't it? Being stubborn and resistant to change or to new things can usually cause some stress, bring some stress into your life. But change helps you build fluidity, helps you go with the flow, so to speak. Change makes you smarter. Every time that you learn something that you need to change, well, that goes into your bank of wisdom, to your bank of skills, teaches you how to adapt a little better. And change also reminds us that anything is possible. What sometimes happens, well, and of course, like somebody over here also said, because in my opinion, we're here to live life to the fullest. We're here to expand, a constant expansion, appreciation, not only of our lives, but each other, all of the exciting things that life can offer to us. What sometimes happens is that we wait to change until we need to change. Like say we get in a really bad situation financially, or say we're in grief, or a relationship ends that causes us a lot of pain, then we realize, uh-oh, I really do need to change. So today I'll be talking about maybe how it might be better to change now while we can direct that change. I'll also be talking about how hard it is to change, because I certainly know about that. I mean, not on a personal basis, of course, but I changed my hat today. I love hats. I wear hats all the time. All my friends know I'll be wearing, usually when they come over, I'm wearing a sarong or a kilt and a hat, or a bandana or a scarf. I'm sorry if that was not the mental image you wanted this morning, but but I wear hats constantly. I just have always liked hats. This is a hat called a kufi cap. This was made for me by a wonderful seamstress, she and her husband, out of North Carolina. And if you want to know the information about it, I'll be happy to share it with you later. She has a website, really great, wonderful people. But she heard my music and she said, I love your music so much, I want to make something for you. And so she sent it to me, and now 4 of my friends have them too. So that's the way it works. Emerson said about change, be not the slave to your own past. Plunge into the sublime seas, dive deep and swim far. So you shall come back with a new self-respect, with new power, and with an advanced experience that shall explain and overlook the old. So, a change will do you good. I think there was a song by Sheryl Crow that came out a few years ago, and I really, really like that song. How many of you remember your New Year's resolutions? What was yours?
I'm more consistent with my online business.
How's it going? We're friends, so we can joke. The New Year's resolution, for some reason, that kind of arbitrary date that we come across and we say, okay, this is time that I'm really going to set. I'm going to make my life different. I'm going to improve it. And why not? Because it zeroes it out. It's like we hit the reset button. We can reboot. You know that when you think something, your body creates chemicals to represent those feelings? So in other words, if I'm thinking I'm happy, my body's immediately going to release, faster than the speed of light, it's going to release these chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, that say you're happy. We've evolved that way in the 2 to 6 million years that we've been humans. So the brain, you tell the brain, I'm happy, boom, it sends immediately to your body the happiness emotions, released from your endocrine system. And so that's so we don't go crazy. Because just think about it. If you thought, I am so happy, and you didn't feel anything, well, you would be like a robot. So that's part of what makes us humans. What can sometimes happen, though, is when we start to identify with our feelings before the thought, it becomes a loop of that we think what we're feeling, we feel what we're thinking, and this loop can happen over 25 years, maybe 30 years. And that becomes what's called a state of being. So that habitual thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking, it creates a state of being. And what neuroscience has shown us is the neurons that fire together wire together. So in other words, you keep thinking certain thoughts, this neural path in your brain is just going to sit there and say, this is who you are. And you become to identify with those feelings. But we can become addicted to those feelings. We can memorize those feelings. So who can tell me what happens when the body becomes the mind, if you understand that question? That's called a habit. That's called a habit. It's an unconscious way of behaving. And there are good habits and there are not so good habits. So say that you have been feeling guilty for 25 years. I'm just throwing 25 years out because it just happens to be a good number. So say that you've been feeling guilty about something that you said to somebody over 25 years ago. And we can become our thoughts. We're the only creatures on the planet who can experience the same situation over and over and over. And what I'm trying to explain is that happens chemically. So say that I remember someone that I offended or that I wronged or did something to 25 years ago. As soon as I think that, I re-experience it The way I experience it is because those chemicals are now flooding back into my body. So I'm thinking, oh, I tell my brain, I'm guilty. My brain says, blink, I'm on it. So faster than the speed of light, it releases these chemicals of guilt. And along with that, resentment, unworthiness, anger, that kind of chain reaction that happens. So then we begin to think thoughts of guilt to match our feelings of guilt. You know, things like unworthiness and self-pity and doubt, resentment, they kick right back in over and over again until this part of our brain says, this is who we are, this is who we are. Now, the one thing about change that is most important to remember and most salient is when we can't think greater than how we feel, we can't change. So let me repeat that. When we can't think greater than how we feel, we can't change. When we can't think beyond our circumstances, and Ernest Holmes, he talked about this over and over in his writings, talks about, you need to think greater than your circumstances. You need to see yourself greater than your circumstances. And what that does is it starts to slowly take these little connections of guilt or whatever that you're holding up here, and it starts to rewire them. Ernest Holmes, he said, when you have some kind of problem, some kind of situation that's a really difficult thing, a challenge in life, he said, turn entirely away from the problem. Turn entirely away from the problem. What was he talking about there? He didn't say be in denial and ignore it, but he said turn away from that problem and think greater than that problem. When we think greater than the problem, we become greater than the problem. And we can't change unless what? We think greater than how we feel. Whew, I know, right? I should play a flute to give it like a palate cleanser there. But so that's why it's so hard to actually change patterns, because we're habitualized, we've memorized these feelings, these ways of thinking, these patterns. Now, habits can sometimes be good. You know, like when you go to pick up like if I were to ask you, what's your PIN number? Not that I want to know it, but like, what's your PIN number or what's the phone number of someone? Well, now, this was back when the time we had to actually dial. Now we just tell Siri, call Bonnie, call Roadrunner Pizza. Okay, Randy, shall I order what you usually get? Yes, extra green chili. So, and then all of a sudden you go to dial someone, you pick up that phone and or your PIN number, and it just happens automatically. That's because the body has become the mind in that situation. It's memorized a pattern of thinking and behavior. So that's a good thing. Me as a musician, I can pick up any instrument that I play and memorize. Usually when I do concerts, they're a little over like 2 hours long, and so that's a lot of music. I don't even have to think twice about what I'm doing. And I'm really lucky because sometimes I think, uh-oh, what's the fingering? I have no idea, and then I just start playing, and it happens. Thank goodness for everyone involved. Okay, let's take an example. Say that we continually feel like we're poor or have feelings of lack. Is the way that we would term it here. Say we constantly had those feelings and thoughts of lack, and they become hardwired into our way of thinking, into our way of feeling about ourselves. That if we won the lottery tomorrow, well, we would probably still feel poor. You know that 70% of lottery winners within a couple of years are completely broke? Why is that? It's because the feelings of abundance and prosperity haven't changed within them. And unless you can think greater than how you feel, what? You're not going to change. I like this by Aldous Huxley in A Brave New World. He says, chronic remorse, as all the moralists are agreed, is a most undesirable sentiment. If you have behaved badly, repent. Make what amends you can and address yourself to the task of behaving better the next time. And on no account brood over that wrongdoing. Because, this is my favorite part, rolling in the muck is not the best way to get clean. Don't you love that? I knew this family from El Paso, and the matriarch, the grandmother, had fallen in a major retail store down in El Paso. She had broken her hip, so they sued, and they got a settlement of $80,000. At the time, their utilities were shut off. And what did they do? They went to Vegas, baby, and spent it all. Came back to a dark house with no running water because they felt lucky, maybe, but luck is not the same thing as feeling abundant or prosperous. Luck is assigning something good is going to happen to you externally. Feeling prosperous and abundance ties into gratitude. Gratitude gives us a sense of control, that we are the masters of our own destiny, that we somehow brought into our lives exactly what we're deserving. And certainly with change, sometimes when we're having those kind of situations, like do you know people that keep repeating the same relationship mistakes over and over again? And they're like, I don't know, it must be the other people. Mm-hmm. Or it could be, yeah, you. So why is change so hard? Why is it so hard? I'm telling you all about the neuroscience of it because I love neuroscience. I think science, as Joe Dispenza says, science is the modern mysticism. When it explains mysticism, it brings it into an understanding that we can all apply and use in our own life. Ernest Holmes' book, his great tome, is called The Science of Mind. You know, it's not called the science of luck or, that kind of thing. It's a science of mind. Let me tell you a little story. Once there was a little boy playing outdoors, and he found this cool-looking caterpillar, one of the ones with the yellow with the black stripes and the little horns and stuff. And he thought that looked really neat. So he picked it up, took it home to show his mother. He had it on a stick. He said, can I keep it? Can I keep it? She says, if you feed it, if you take care of it. And he said, okay. So she gave him one of those big bell jars. And he put plants in it, and he put some flowers and leaves and a big stick in there so the caterpillar could kind of hang out on. And so one day he was looking, and the caterpillar started to act kind of funny, and it was shaking around the way that caterpillars do and hanging upside down. It was like, what's wrong? And his mother said, oh, he's creating a cocoon. The butterfly, the caterpillar's creating a cocoon, and he's going to turn into a butterfly. And so this was exciting. The boy had never seen anything kind of quite like that. He was so happy, and he kept watching it every day, and he, a little magnifying glass, and he was looking at it. And one day it started to make a little hole in the very bottom of that cocoon. And he said, oh my gosh, it's finally happening. So he calls his mom, and they look at it. And another day goes by, and the hole gets a little bigger, but the butterfly seems to be having some struggle. So he goes and gets a pair of scissors, and he runs. Then he remembers, walk with scissors. You don't poke your eyes out. And he snips a bigger hole in the cocoon. Yeah, you know where this is going, don't you? So he does that, and as a butterfly comes out, the boy's surprised because it has a swollen body, and it's kind of small, and its wings are all shriveled up. And he continued to watch it and expecting, it's going to get this beautiful wings and just be all beautiful hanging out there. But it never did that. It comes out of the cocoon, but it's walking around, and its wings are all shriveled. And so they take it to the county extension office and say, what's wrong with our butterfly? Well, those are the people who would know. Takes it down there, and one of the teachers there says, you cut it out of the cocoon too soon. He said, see, the butterfly actually has to struggle, and by struggling, it lets all the blood and all those beautiful fluids go to its wings to strengthen them. But because it couldn't go through that struggle and through that effort, it's never going to grow wings fully. Now, isn't that a nice metaphor and example? Well, in some ways, our old beliefs, our limiting way of thinking about our experience and about our life and our feelings are not allowing us to also do that, So it's a good way to think about. You know that when a butterfly goes from caterpillar to a butterfly, from a caterpillar to the pupa, it liquefies. It liquefies. I've seen all these tests on it. They're gross, but it actually liquefies within the cocoon. And then only then does it start to become to the form of an actual butterfly and start to get its wings and its antenna and cute little faces that they have. But it has to go through that. And at no point does it say, I'm not really worth it. I'm not really worthy. Nothing ever goes my way. I'm so unlucky. God, just my luck. It never says that, you know. It says, this is who I am, and I'm going to become who I am. But only through that struggle and through that challenge, through that metamorphosis, does it fully become realized as that beautiful creature that I told you about in the beginning story. So say one day we wake up and we say, I'm going to set my intention from now on to feel happy, to feel prosperous, to claim my life, to feel powerful, to feel confident. Well, what happens, those are different chemicals. And if we've memorized the feelings that are its opposite, unworthiness, victimization, pity, self-pity, when we start to try to behave in a different way and think in it in a different way, what we've memorized, this is what it does. The body says, uh-oh, all of my chemicals that I'm used to getting, those, cortisol, the stress hormones that I'm used to getting are not coming down. Something's going on. So it has a conference, it starts texting all the other cells and say, yo, something's happening here. Juan is trying to do that, and we're not going to let him, So what it does, it fast tracks through your spinal system, through your central nervous system, shoom, and it tries to shoot those chemicals. It shoots to the brain. Hello, we're feeling unworthy and guilty, not happy and prosperous, and so the brain says, oh, I'm sorry, I must have been asleep. And so if that doesn't work, it shoots it through the circulatory system, those chemicals, and along with that comes the self-chatter. You've never been successful. You've always been a failure. You're not born rich, you're not this, you're not that. When you hear those voices, it's the chemical thing, it's the feelings and the patterns that have been memorized by the body. So, like I said in the beginning, we can only change when we think greater than how we feel. This takes some effort. So I'm going to tell you how to do that, hopefully. I've come up with 8 steps, just in case you want to write them down. But like I said, they do have the CDs for sale afterwards in the bookstore, and this will be on YouTube probably by next Thursday, thanks to Randy. He has such a great name. I just love saying it. Thomas Merton said, we stumble and fall constantly, and even when we are most enlightened. But when we are in true spiritual darkness, we do not even know that we have fallen. I like that. So first, ask yourself, the first question is, what do you want to change about yourself? What do you want to be different in your experience? What I do every single morning, I get up and I ask myself, what is the greatest ideal of myself that I can be today? Then I think of somebody who inspires me. I won't tell you who, but I just think of different people who've inspired me to get up every morning and keep doing what I do as a musician, as a healer, just as a person on this planet trying to make a contribution. And then I meditate on that. I meditate literally on what is the best version of myself that I can be today. The Tibetan translation, the Sanskrit character for meditation in Tibetan, the literal translation is to become familiar with. So by meditating, I become familiar with my limiting thinking because I hear those voices in my head. It'd be so much easier to just turn on Netflix. It'd be so much easier to not go for that walk and just sit here and eat a giant breakfast burrito, but I challenge it every day. Okay. So these are the 8 steps. First one is notice your habitual attitudes and your words and phrases about things like happiness or money. Like, do you say every day, that person's just got lucky, So notice and monitor your habitual attitudes. Understand, number 2 is understand that thoughts are sometimes just thoughts and don't necessarily have to define who you are. Sometimes thoughts are just thoughts. In other words, we don't need to lasso them, attach to them, and think, I am that thought. Sometimes what you learn in meditation, sometimes they go by just like clouds or balloons, and you just release them. Number 3, when you notice a limiting thought or a feeling or a belief, challenge it. Deny it and affirm its truthful opposite. Number 4, whatever you feel is okay, but know that you aren't necessarily your feelings. You're greater than your feelings, and that's the whole point I'm trying to offer for today. Learn to feel a different way. Spend time in silence. Write it out on paper. Write your feelings out on paper. How do you feel about love? How do you feel about money? How do you feel about relationships? How do you feel about prosperity? Number 5 is mourn and move on. Or as I like to say, die to the past every day if you have to. It's like the story of the pupa coming out of that chrysalis. It's work, it's hard, but you won't be able to fly without wings, without your own wings. Number 6, I like this one. Demand perfect effort, but not perfect results. Learn to know the difference. But be stubborn. Be stubborn about changing. Be just as stubborn as you are about being entrenched as you are about changing. There's a story of this young man. He was working for his dad, and he ended up losing $50,000. And his dad called him in. He said, I'm going to get fired. But he went in and said, why would I fire you? His dad said. He said, I just invested $50,000 into your education. So, Number 7, break long-term change into small, doable chunks and congratulate yourself for every time that you challenge an old belief and replace it with a new one. Number 8, don't wait for a crisis to force you to change. I know about that. Practice gratitude for your new attitude. That's what I like to say. Practice gratitude for your new attitude. We're already changing, so why not ride on that boat? Why not be the steerer of that boat, the oars person of that boat? Why not take the steering wheel? You know that every second, 10 million cells in your body are created. 10 million cells in your body are created every second to replace the 10 million that just died. It's said that we have a new pancreas every 2 years. The cells are regenerating so quickly. It's said that every 7 years we have a new body. I'm going to put an order on that one. Because our cells are not stagnant. Our cells are continually being replenished and renewed. So why not be part of that? What doesn't change is actually change. So take charge of that. And I'm going to end with just some final thoughts and then some words by Ernest Holmes. What I like to sometimes do, I like to go back when I really felt that I have been less than my ideal self. And I ask myself, if I could go back, what would I tell myself? How would I tell myself how to behave? Go back to yourself as a child. Go back to yourself when you had to leave that relationship that wasn't serving you. Be compassionate with yourself. Be forgiving. Know that you have mistakes, but everybody has them too. Forgive and release everyone who has hurt you. You know that old saying that I bring up often here about when you don't forgive, it's like holding a really hot coal waiting to throw at the person. Who gets burned, right? So let go, really bless and let go. I'm going to end with, this is from Ernest Holmes' book, Creative Mind. I have the Kindle version. And then we're going to go into a meditation after that. Ernest Holmes says, creative mind cannot force itself upon us because we have the power of self-choice. It recognizes us when we recognize it. When we think that we are limited or have not been heard, it must take that thought and bring it into manifestation for us. Just like when we think, we have to get chemicals that make us feel. Same thing. When we look about us and see nature so beautiful and lavish and limitless, when we realize that something, some power is behind it all and sees to it that plenty obtains everywhere, so that in all things manifest there is more that could ever be used. And when on the other hand, we see humans so limited, sick, sad, and needy, we're disposed to ask this question: is God good after all? Does He really care for people, His creations? Then why am I sick? And why are there poor? And little do we realize that the answer is within our own mouths, in the creative power of our own thought, so that the average person, when told the truth, will seek some other way. And so it is.